victory and the agony of defeat.
Madison, great ball around the corner, Petticini, he beats them all! Junior Polar out wide, bumped away from Cronulla Sharks coming through, none of them can hold him!
All right, there we go. Can you hear me, Craig? There we go. My microphone was the cable not plugged in properly there. So we're off to a great start, much like the result in round 9. G'day, folks. As always, I'm John, and this is my mate, Craig. Welcome to another episode of the Tip Sheet Podcast, live reaction from round 9 in Magic Round up in Brisbane with the Eels going down in, I want to say, mildly controversial circumstances to the Cronulla Sharks, 28-18. I'm beyond fired up. I'm at the point where I'm beyond firing up 60s. I'm just tired. I'm just tired of the dog shit officiating in this game. And I mean, I was having a chat in chat with Carl, who came in and he made a salient point, and he's not wrong. Talking the age-old adage, tough calls, but they were better in key moments and iced opportunities, and we had a chat there about it. And in a vacuum, what Carl said is true. But it happens too often on the wrong side of the ledger for Parramatta. The games where we get the calls, the games where we have the shit calls going our way, the controversial calls going our way, just don't come at anywhere near the same rate, if at all. And anyway, we'll be given Cronulla credit. They played Cronulla weren't. It's not Cronulla's fault. They played a good game. Oh, hang on, Craig. Hang on. We got you an issue for you on audio. What's happening here? I think I know. Sorry, guys. I'm fairly certain this is on. No, that one there. It's capturing you there. What's going on? What has happened here? Roadcaster here. Yeah. And Roadcaster here. Oh, that's why here, I think. Give me a line quickly.
Hello.
Okay. OBS, for some reason, decided to drop the decibels on a lot on you. I don't know why. Can you guys hear Craig now? Give us a line, Craig, so I can...
I'm fired up. How about that?
Is he coming through now, guys? Just waiting for anyone in chat to give us some feedback. Yep. Okay, there we go. Okay, yeah. OBS, for some reason, decided to drop your line way down, and I have no idea why. So anyway, Craig came in saying that he's fired up, essentially. That was the gist of what he was saying. He is not happy.
Well, look, I will repeat what I was just saying, right? Because you can say Cronulla were the better team on the night and not have an argument from me about that. You can say that Parramatta missed some opportunities and weren't good enough on the night. No problem there. But you cannot say that officiating was up to scratch. And I would argue that it made a shitload of difference. No, I shouldn't say a shitload of difference. It made a lot of difference in that game, a lot of those calls, because you're going to go over some of these, John. I've had messages from people about the number of times that Eels players were called out for not being square at marker.
That one grinds my gears.
Completely square all night, all effing night. That was happening, right? That sort of stuff during a game. I'm not talking about big calls. I'm talking about a succession of garbage run game management of referees, the way they managed the game, and it was complete crap, right? We talked before about this game, that we are a team that for whatever reason, this referee Goff has a problem with.
We came into this game with a 37.5% win rate under him. 9 wins, 24 losses.
That will happen with referee. And especially if you've had a bad year the year before, you're going to end up with bad winning percentages under referees. However, we saw tonight that he doesn't like the way that we play. He just doesn't like the way that we play. Now, we can get into some of the bigger calls as well, because you look at, for a start, that call that was made against Bailey Simonson, where even the Fox commentators, as soon as the bunker started saying, and this was a bunker call, not Goff's call, but as soon as the bunker started saying, we're just going to look at it now to see if he swaps from contesting for the ball to tackling the player in the air, and the commentators were going, no.
You know what the problem here is, Craig, is that that's just a terrible call in a vacuum, and again, it comes down to the use of slow motion to try and adjudicate on what is clearly a full speed sequence of events. And B, the bigger issue here, or maybe not the bigger issue, but the equally large issue here, stemming from that call, if you're going to say that Bailey Simonson has made an illegal play, a cynical play in a try-scoring situation, you can't just leave it at a penalty. Like, you were literally contradicting yourself.
Yeah, well, that's even aside. But going to the call, and the call is made, and the call's blatantly wrong, right? The call is blatantly wrong. Not a little bit wrong, blatantly wrong. The only people that are calling it that way are the ones in the bunker. Now, what's the outcome from that? Instead of a 20-metre restart to the Eels, they have to defend. And they defended, but they got the ball 10 metres out instead of 7 tackles from the quarter line. The Eels were down by 4 points at that stage. What difference might that have made? A call there. You see teams go the length of the field in the 7-tackle set from the 20-metre line, right? That sort of garbage, a garbage call like that, is a match-defining call. I don't care whether the Sharks didn't score off it then. It prevented the Eels from going down the other end of the field and putting pressure on the Sharks. It's a garbage call. It has to be called that way. And it's, again, a case of the bunker getting things horribly wrong when they shouldn't be.
And, of course, Craig,
and now also, let's talk about some of the put-downs of those Sharks players in grounding the ball. Talk to me about that first one from Iro.
Yeah, well, we only got the one look at it on the reverse angle, didn't we? And they conveniently cut very quickly on the coverage, saying, oh, it looked a bit dodgy, but they've cleared it. Again, without the benefit of the extra angles, it's hard to make a call, but you would have liked to have seen them take more than a cursory glance, because that was a interesting put down for sure.
Yeah. Oh, look, but it's not, as I said, it's not so much those big calls, because they're bunker calls. And yes, it was a big call that was wrong with the where Simonson was penalised. But it is, as I said before, those successions of calls in the run of play.
Well, the Cronulla Sharks scored their first 2 tries off runs of calls where the Eels they weren't even trying to spoil the ruck. They were just trying to make their tackles and then be the bare minimum of competitive in the ruck, when they got drilled on 6 agains and penalties. And you saw it, especially with the first try. The second try, a little bit too, but especially that first try, where we just didn't want to compete in that last tackle because we were being killed. And it was the 4th or 5th tackle again. We made a tackle, did not compete. They got up, had the numbers, and ran the inside line, and we gave away the try. And that's what those sequential calls do to you, don't they, Craig? They get inside your head. They make you less competitive in the areas that you need to be competitive, and it leads to points. And we got hammered. There is no two ways about it. We got hammered. And the problem was that and if you go through, and I'm sure you're going to be able to find calls that the Sharks will be upset about too. I mean, both teams had outrageous high shot penalties. One against Oregon Kafusi, and then one against, I believe, Gideon Katonga, where they were clearly across the chest and shoulder. But my umbrage here is with the inconsistency in how the 6 agains were officiated in terms of the second efforts and the ruck sort of spoiling that went on. There were a number of calls that the Eels didn't get that the Sharks were getting, and that just led to those big runs of possession that flipped the game in those crucial sort of, I suppose, mid, like second, third stanza moments.
John, I just had Clint just sent me a clip of that particular angle of Iro clearly dropping the ball and grounding it over the line. Clearly.
Well, we have to fire up about that one now too. Oh my God.
I'll send it.
Yeah,
I'll
forward it on to
John.
me just so. Oh, there we go. That's why my mic levels were down. Sorry, guys. I just realised that it was not all the way in. There we go. Sorry about that. Yes, it's well, what a shock. More dog shit work from the bunker. Yeah.
Yeah. So, by the way, we shout out to our sponsors.
That's what I was trying to get into, and you're getting all fired up.
Yeah, so shout out to Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta, and also to Parramatta Leagues Club, the home of the Eels. Apologies for just launching straight into how fired up we were rather than getting into some of our formalities. And, of course, whatever you're watching this on or listening to, if you can give it a like and subscribe, that would be great. John, okay, I'll divert away from how fired up I am at the moment. But before that, have we got any comments in?
Well, when it's not you being muted or my mic not being picking up properly because the cable had fallen out a little bit. Thanks for the text book, guys. Like I'm not being facetious. Thank you. A lot of people fired up at the calls, obviously. So we got going back to the start. Obviously, we had that conversation I had with Carl, which was good chatting. We've got Scott saying nothing more frustrating than those penalties and or 6 agains on the 4th or 5th. Happens a lot against us, but we rarely get them. Yep. Set restart.
And we got 2 6 agains on the first tackle,
and that is exactly where Scott went with that. A set restart on 0 the first doesn't even count as a set restart. I agree.
No, we accounted for 2 set restarts with 2 extra tackles, and it only takes the Sharks getting one of them to get an extra 4 or 5 tackles on it. And look, it could very well be the offence that's happened, and that's just bad luck because you've committed an offence on the 4th or 5th tackle, whereas they've maybe deliberately committed an offence on the first tackle. So that they're able to set themselves a little bit better. We know that those sort of cynical penalties happened when the set restart was brought in because teams were deliberately conceding a set restart on a team's own line with the idea of getting that defence settled, and that's why they brought in the penalty inside the 40 metres. But, John, I mean, we can be cynical all we like about when set restarts are called and when certain decisions are made. Like, for example, we see every game players roll the ball back under the legs now, not using the foot.
Addo-Carr made an attempt to strike at that. That is literally what the rule asks you of you. You don't need to make contact and attempt to strike. Meanwhile, though, against both teams after that, multiple roll balls missed. And
It was Parramatta it wasn't a case of Parramatta were penalised and then Cronulla did it all night because Parramatta was still rolling the ball back and Cronulla was still rolling the ball back. But if you're a ref and you've made a decision to penalise or to pull someone up, you're obligated to keep going.
You have set the mandate for that game. And this is the problem with their crackdowns, with their focuses, with their KPIs, is that they're going to come in, they'll make a couple of calls or maybe just the one call. It's going to impact the game at some point and then they're not consistent. Just like how we had a knock-on caught against us when Addo-Carr got caught by Stone Street in the corner and he flings it back inside to Russell, trying to keep the play alive, no dramas. It's caught a knock-on. I was okay with that, Craig, because 99 times out of 100, that's a knock-on, right? The ball might have gone backwards on perception, but relative to where they initially touched it with momentum, they were called a knock-on. Lo and behold, 5 minutes later, Cronulla do exactly the same, knock-on, it's called knock-back, and they score off that stupid obstruction play that was called not obstruction. Be consistent. That is all we ask. Just be consistent.
Yeah, I thought it was a blatant knock-on.
It was a blatant knock-on. It was a blatant knock-on. And all our players as one went, okay, knock on. And then they had to scramble to make the tackle because it was that obvious a call. Oh.
Yeah, see, the thing is, this is what I was saying. This isn't all about the penalty calls. This is about the absolute shit calls that happen during the course of a game that just slide through and don't appear in the stats. You're not going to see a stat that says knock on missed by the referee. You're not going to see a stat that says obstruction call missed by the referee. You're not going to see a stat about players that are called not square at marker when they're completely square at marker and having it happen all game, which then affects the flow of the defence, allows an opposing team to get a run straight through the ruck untouched. It was a garbage game. It has to be called as a garbage game. Now, I will go onto the Sharks. They played much better than they did last week.
We knew that was coming. Yeah.
Their defence in their red zone was, for mine, what won the game for them.
Their right edge did a couple of really important scrambles.
Yep. I said to you when we were doing our tips for the game, and we were doing the first try scorer tips, and I said to you, actually, my tip would be Britton Nakora to be an anytime try scorer, such as his threat. Well, there you go. Like a minute or so before halftime, bang, he's got that line that he runs. He's almost unstoppable with that line. So, the Cronulla, they took advantage of the chances that they generated, perhaps better than the Eels did, or I could say Cronulla did very well at shutting down a lot of opportunities that the Eels created. This Eels team right now, they said it on the broadcast, is vastly different in what they're doing in attack compared to what we saw at the start of the season. This was a game, I honestly believe this, John, and there will be people who will maybe shout this down. This was a game where if it was a different match official or officials, if I'm going to throw in the bunker as well, that maybe it goes the other way. Maybe with a modicum of luck that would go our way. Now, you saw that with that 40-20 kick that was made.
The leg break on that kick. I mean, great kick. But how many 40-20s have we had not break for us this year? And then you have that one with the Shane Warne leg spinner. It was more of a Stuart McGill leg spinner, honestly. McGill obviously way more famous for his side spin than Warney. And, yeah, that was a wicked break on that one. And, look, I don't want it to get lost and you've done a great job pointing out where the Sharks were so good. It should not get lost that Cronulla played a great game here. They played some good football.
Oh, no. Absolutely. And that I was at pains to say that at the start of this podcast, that we're going to let rip at the match officials, right? But we would be giving Cronulla credit because you could argue they were the better team, right? And then if you argue they're the better team, well, why are you having a crack at the refs? Because the refs provided some of that opportunity that was there. The refs helped with the flow of play. What the Sharks did exceptionally well was they defended so well in their red zone, as I said, and that right side of their attack was just so good, so clinical when they had the opportunity to score. And the way they ran the ball on the last tackle would be, it'd be it'd really be a lesson for other teams.
That looked like it was something they caught on tape. They might have picked something up on their review of us, opportunities to maybe spread the ball on the last. So now that it's on tape against us, hopefully we obviously move to combat that with our counter structures defensively.
John, okay, let's talk about Parramatta now. What we didn't do well, but also what we did do well.
What we didn't do well, and the big one for mine, it goes hand in hand with the cause, but it goes back to what Carl was saying at the start of the podcast. When you give away those 6 agains and those penalties, you really need to be able to aim up defensively, and we did struggle there. I think there's no doubt. I made the case that one of those or two of those tries came on the back of us getting a little bit tentative in the ruck because of the calls. That's true. I do think that's true. But again, our structures defensively got pulled apart by the Sharks when they changed the angle of attack and ran it on the last. So I think that's the big area where we really let ourselves down. I think the other thing that probably, and this one's a bit harder to say they really screwed up because they were not low percentage plays, but there are a couple of attacking raids. Obviously, Mitch Moses had one with the professional foul where he would be killing himself if they didn't find support down the left. And then down our left edge, a couple of times we had something cooking and just the last pass was not quite there. Fox couldn't get the ball inside cleanly to Katonga one time. That was that knock-on that we got a bit fired up about that led to the not knock-on later for Cronulla. Obviously, that last play or the last gasp play we had where it got intercepted, Sean Russell trying to quickly funnel the ball out. There was just a couple of those plays, and I think that's probably the big one for mine is it's a team that is still learning how to win is probably not the right term, but learning how to consolidate and complete some of those opportunities.
Yeah, look, I'd agree with that, John. Probably I was concerned about how we defended kicks when the ball was put high. We looked like there was always a chance when the ball went up in the air. And that's probably as much about Cronulla competing for the ball in the air compared to us maybe not being in position for those sorts of kicks with the kick chase or not competing. But I thought we looked – there was an element of us looking shaky all night with that.
Yeah, I agree. We weren't quite with complete conviction under the high ball. Iongi obviously had that drop, which the coverage didn't really talk about it, but I thought there was a disruptor there, which was a crucial moment, obviously, with the knock-on there. But, yeah, we certainly weren't under the high ball with complete conviction, and that's fair. Just trying to think the other area I had in my mind. Well, again, look, our ruck defense, I don't know how much blame to apportion on the Eels 60s because getting your square markers constantly called out, what a sabotage of your ruck defense. Like, what are you meant to do? We had good line speed and aggression early on in sets, which is something that Riles pointed out in his halftime chat. He wanted to make tackles 1, 2, and 3 really count. But when you get your markers called out consistently, and we had a couple of guys a couple of times where players were clearly offside. I think Charlie Geimer had one where I was screaming at the TV, "Don't get involved, Charlie," because he was about a metre offside. But there were so many where we got called out from legitimate legal positions, and that kills you.
Now, things that I want to talk about in the positive. Look, I thought Charlie was quite good out there on the edge.
Yeah, he had a nice first stint. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and then I thought when Jordan Samrani come on to replace him, that
probably doesn't want Bowie passing to him anymore, though.
Yes, yeah.
But Jordan did a good job. Some good tackles of his own, some good meters. Obviously, something in the lab there for the Parramatta Eels, right? Having been a centre and a little bit of a winger for the Eels in the preseason and the early parts of the season. We've got something cooking there from Jason Riles as part of a plan to get probably their hottest hand in the New South Wales Cup back in the first grade. And him playing first grade is interesting, 60s, because I don't think there were enough players out to warrant a dispensation call from the NRL. So maybe there's been an upgrade in the background ahead of that round 10/11 cutoff.
Maybe they got some dispensation with Sean Lane taking time out. Maybe they were able to... And
he steps into the top 30 as a result, I guess. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't asked about it. I don't know.
That's actually a fair call. A player goes out, player comes in. Yeah. In terms of the good, though, 60s, there was plenty here. The Eels, far from perfect, don't get me wrong, but we had really solid contributions across the back line. I thought the back five in general were pretty good. Sean Lane, the only player under 100 metres there, but he still had some nice touches helping set up. Sean Russell. You planted, you incepted the idea into my mind there, 60s. Sean Russell. I thought Will Pennicini had a great running tussle with his opposite in defence. 18 tackles, 2 missed, but a lot of really good reads there. Good to see Will. Look, he's not back to his best, but that he is starting to warm to the task. Adokar was excellent. 13 carries, 191 metres. Couple of line breaks there. Scored a couple of tries. Extends his lead as the most prolific try scorer in Magic Round. But crucially for mine, it wasn't the flashy stuff, 60s. And on the flashy stuff, thank God for Adokar actually centering the ball. Too many players take the easy dive over these days. And the 5 metres he bought Sean Russell on those 2 tries probably contributed to the centre getting those kicks over or just inside the uprights. But Adokar did some great work rocking it out. 7 tackle breaks. His per run stats are great, and they weren't inflated by the line breaks of the try scored because they were close range tries he got there. So really good work there from the Fox.
Yeah, absolutely. Just looking at some of the work rate tonight, and see why Riley Smith was given a rest, 57 tackles.
Yeah.
In his time out there. Now he's down for 7 misses, but we know where that sort of thing comes about, where it's just a really big body running at him, or maybe he doesn't quite finish the tackle. But there's many times where it's like he gets bumped off a bit and then comes back to finish off the tackle. So or bounces over to the next tackle. So, but that's an enormous stat, that 57 tackles. Junior Paulo is listed for 44 tackles, no misses.
And they've got him for just over 100 metres, 107. But I'll tell you what, you'd be hard-pressed to find a more effective 107 metres. He had the Sharks really struggling with those offloads. Some really quality second phase play from both him and Luca Moretti in this game. Where is the offload stat? I always lose track of it in the post-game. There it is. 3 offloads apiece for Luca, Hopgood, and Junior. So some good second phase play there from the Parramatta Eels. And yeah, Junior, not just 44 tackles, 60s, but a couple of bell ringers in there too. He had a good stint. So there were some rumours this week that Junior's looking to retire. Certainly doesn't look like a man that's looking to hang up those boots, eh?
No, that's like one of those fake rumour
I feel like
type stuff. People, when sometimes these rumours get a life of their own. If something doesn't look right, it isn't. We don't even delve into discussing stuff when it sounds like it's crap. And that sounded like it was crap right from the start. So we didn't even touch it. We've had that rumour sent to us for the last 2 weeks. So
beyond that, those 60s. Look, I'll
tell you what I was surprised with, John, and I don't know whether he got hurt, but Luca only got 23 minutes. And for mine, he was causing some havoc out there.
Yeah.
With his runs and offloads. Like, he was generating the second phase play that he was generating. Well, one of them led directly to a try, and the others were leading to a lot of inroads through the team, through the Sharks' defence. I'm really surprised that he was only out there for 23 minutes. I'm really, greatly surprised by that.
Yeah, I agree. Again, great impact from the bench. Tuivasa, Moretti, Walker, Sam Roney we touched on as well there too. And yeah, Sam had his stint disrupted by a HIA. And then, like you said, Luca came out of the game. And I don't know if it was just Riles trying to re-inject fresh legs with Williams and Junior and Hopgood coming back on, although Hopgood obviously playing the dummy half role for a brief window there. But yeah, if Luca isn't hurt, a bit of a faux pas there from the Parramatta Eels. The Sharks were struggling for what he was bringing off the back fence there. So
yeah.
And I saw guys in chat, I know you are throwing in some good comments there. There has been some discussion about the back row 60s about what can we do. Some people not happy with Gideon's performance. I thought Gideon was okay. 10 runs, nearly 80 metres. I think he had 31 tackles, 0 missed. I think people are more upset about the errors, but the errors this week, there was one from the try, like the quote-unquote try that Fox flung back in. Am I missing a big error? I felt like he didn't have any dumb drops this week.
I think, are they talking about the that defensive error next to Riley where they scored the try where he's gone for the decoy runner?
Which I feel was an obstruction. I know you sort of texted me differently, but Oregon Kafusi in front of the ball, taking away defensive angle and vision of the ball to the other runner, I feel like that's a textbook obstruction. Well, not textbook, it's a niche obstruction rather. I can't believe the bunker greenlit that straight away. But what do I know? If you're in front of the ball, you lose the right to be in support, and he was in front of the ball, and he took away. He forced a decision out of Gideon Katonga, where Gideon has to play that man because the ball's in the air, but he's in front of the ball. So,
look, I even thought that there was elements of an obstruction with. I think it was the first try from Sam Stonestreet, the one where he had the dodgy grounding of the ball.
Yeah.
it looked to me like they had a couple of decoy runners, and for mine it was 50-50 whether the Eels made a bad defensive read to tackle those boys, or in fact whether they'd stayed in the Eels defensive line, because definitely Dylan Brown was moving across, and maybe if he had played it up a little bit more, and we don't want to see players ham it up a bit in terms of any obstruction that's made to them, but he was definitely on the slide across, and then ended up running into / tackling one of those decoy runners. And then of course we saw what was, I think it was a line ball, whether it was grounded correctly with Stone Street, because he's either lost the ball just above the ground, or as he's grounded it, it's bounced up into his hand. And I haven't had a chance to still frame it or what have you, and you'd have to still frame it before the ball hits the ground rather than after, because at some point it's going to look like there's the ball and the hand have become disconnected, and you'd have to decide whether it's before or after the put down. But for mine it was really, really line ball, and I thought they were actually going to the bunker.
There was a moment, yeah.
And I thought, well, they've seen what I saw, but no, they just very quickly awarded the try, and goal kick taken. John, have we got some questions there or comments to reply to?
Yeah,
because
I've seen.
Just quickly, I'm still really pissed off about this. So, like you and I, we both chatted before and saying we really almost didn't feel like doing an instant reaction. So pissed off were we with what transpired out on the field. Those sorts of things take away your passion for the game. And
I agree. It takes the fun out of watching this as a spectator. When you have a game so impacted by both bizarre calls and just frustrating interpretations or one-sided interpretations. And like I said, you can cop bad calls going away. You can cop, bad games. But when it's systemically going against you, and like I said, try and go back and find the last game where the Eels had the outrageous calls in their favour. You'd be a lot hard pressed to go back deep into the Brad Arthur time, because it was a recurring motif under BA where he wouldn't call out the officials. And I haven't seen the presser guys, and I don't know if it's gone up yet, but God, I hope Rolls has a crack. He probably won't. But I hope he does.
And I'll tell you why he probably won't. This is just my opinion. Who knows? He might have a crack. But the thing is, the Eels can't come out of this thinking about the referee did us. They have to come out of it and go, we did this wrong, we did this wrong, we did this wrong. We have to be better here, we have to be better there. That can be their only focus. Certainly for the players, and the coach's message to the players has to be about being better. So I would understand if he didn't, but like you, John, I'd hope that he would have a crack, but it's probably not going to achieve one iota. And in fact, might get him a fine.
We had 11 years of under Brad Arthur. I'm done. Have a crack. Like, blame the refs, because not blaming the refs doesn't help, honestly. I've had enough. I understand the messaging. It's the same thing earlier with Carl. I've had enough. Blame the refs. Like, someone, and not Ricky Stewart because he's a meme, the code needs to stand up. This isn't good enough. And as a team that's been habitual, getting our asses kicked by the refs, it's not good enough. So
just so our listeners know, I've already been encouraging John to break down all of the garbage calls in this in a post or little video accompanying things. But I understand why John wouldn't want to do it, because it's what's the point?
Yeah, that's the issue. Is like that we're not going to start a groundswell that's going to change everything. It's up to the teams. And
look, the mainstream media's had their crack at the standard of officiating.
Yeah,
the NRL made the decision that coaches can't criticize.
They're the arsonists on the side pouring oil onto a fire. They just want to get headlines. They don't actually give a shit about making the game better. At least not most of them. Some of them would, but I don't want to tar them off the same brush. If they wanted to, they could be cheering independently responses from coaches, from former players, from former people involved in the game about what to do, but instead they just sit there writing headlines. So, yeah, I think it's time for the team to stand up here, and I hope that our coach does, because I'm unashamedly a fan of what Brad Arthur did, and I know that he had plenty of critics, but one thing that I always was frustrated about was his refusal to put the referees under blast when, like, situationally, not obviously every week or every month. It needed to be in moderation, but he never did it. And it felt like because of that, there was never any pressure for the referees to change their stupid tip sheets. Our tip sheet good, their tip sheet bad, and their stupid KPIs. Because you can see referees looking to, they're seeing the boogeyman in the shadows in every tackle. They're looking for the reason to penalise because of their preparation, not officiating and adjudicating a tackle, a play, any sort of event on its own individual merit. And it's crept so far into the game. It's not a Parramatta problem. It's a code problem. And I don't know how you fix it, but something needs to be done. They need more eyes on the field. They need a pocket referee that can actually take pressure off the main official. They need a bunker that actually knows what the shit it's doing, because they sure as hell don't know right now. They're broken on so many different levels. And the worst part is, and we've told you guys before in podcasts, as people who have attended hundreds of lower grade games now in our time as TCT and as fans, what we are seeing in the NRL is the best they have. There is a reason you don't see the rotation and the dropping that people want, because you go down to park football, and I don't know if the infrastructure is not there and the support's not there for the development of more officials, but the officials down there are not putting the pressure on the main officials that are in circulation right now. So the system is just broken from top to bottom.
Yeah, look, when you see a showpiece game like last night with the women's origin, and how on earth there was that try that was disallowed to the Blues where Belinda Sharp, is his name still Sharp, or is that anyway? The referee called a knock on where there wasn't anything that remotely resembled a knock on by New South Wales, and as the New South Wales player was literally coming in to ground the ball, you could see her in the background blow the whistle at that point. Now, in a split second, she could have gone like that, right? She's actually, and look, that would be fine if you go, well, she's backing herself. But there wasn't anything that was remotely like a knock-on that had happened before it. That's the top game for the women's game. And that was so astoundingly bad, it was embarrassing. And then tonight, what we saw, you could literally put that clip of Bailey Simonson competing for the ball and then getting crushed under the tackle, under the falling, the diving Mulatalo, and being adjudged for making a tackle. Right? And that's all at slow motion as well. It's in slow motion. If you want to know what's bad, what's wrong, what's messed up with the bunker, show that every week. The media needs to show that every week and say, look at that. That is the bunker. That is what the sort of decisions that are being made by the bunker. And then realise whatever official made that call in the bunker should never be in a bunker again. Never in a bunker again.
Well, I can tell you that it was Chris Butler in the box this week. And
never in the bunker again.
And the player I felt really bad for there, obviously Bailey Simonson, because what can he do? But Mitchell Moses was just pleading like a QC, or now KC, I suppose, to Peter Goff. And it wasn't, Goff made the opposite call. He called it a knock-on initially. As bad as his game was in general, he actually got that one right. And Moses is there pleading like a top solicitor his case. Like, what do you expect him to do? He's contesting the ball. He can't then dislodge his arm from the process. Where's he meant to go? And Goff's just in there. I can't help you. I didn't make the call. You're arguing to the wrong. And Goff was right there, but it's the rotten cherry on top of a shit cake, isn't it? When the bunker and the main official are just giving you the absolute shits. And
well, you know what? And here's another reason why I would say just keep showing that decision over and over again. Because first of all, as you pointed out, if he's penalised him for doing that in the tackle,
natural
then it should
process,
be a penalty try.
Exactly, a penalty try or a sin bin. Exactly. And
but if he had the other side of the coin is, if he had have awarded a penalty try, it would have been the worst friggin' penalty try decision one of the worst after we saw the one earlier this season against the Fox.
Yeah,
then,
when you had
idea.
the Canberra winger going like, what penalty try?
Or you've given me a try. You kidding?
Xavier Savage was like, excuse me, okay, that says everything you need to know about that call. Yeah, look.
Okay, we better stop our rantings because we want to give an opportunity for the viewers and listeners to have their say as well. So, yeah, John, I'll throw it to you.
A couple of people, Mike, Chris, a few other people in chat, making a fair point, asking about the lack of the use of the grubber kick for our attacking sets. No dropouts, no, obviously, try scoring opportunities off the rolled ball. What's going on there, 60s? We've been preferring running the ball, been preferring going to the air without Zach Lomax. Is that a bit of a misnomer? Have they missed the trick here, or is that obviously a game plan against the Sharks?
Yeah, I can't answer that. I like a kicking game where you're throwing variety at the opposition. I can only say either it wasn't part of the game plan against the Sharks, or the players weren't following the game plan. But I think I agree with that sentiment, because I think you have to ask whatever questions you can. And if the Sharks were handling the high ball, why wouldn't you go for the grubber?
Yep.
So,
and look, we saw some great mixed attacking options from the Eels, but it could just be as simple as they got sort of strung up on trying to go to those two options, running the ball or going to the air, and they got it wrong. So I don't think that's an unfair point made by chat. So some good vision there. Look, again, more discussion about the back rowers. I think I saw Joel asking if there's a better option than Gideon. And look, I don't think Gideon should be playing 80 in an ideal world, 60s. I think that he's a raw development prospect. I think he's probably the dumb stuff he's done, especially against the Tigers, walking back through the ruck, deserves to be criticised. I feel like he's been scapegoated just a little bit at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like you said about Ricky Stewart. It's almost becoming a meme.
Yeah,
where it's fingers pointed at Gideon all the time. I agree with John. He's really, really raw. My take on it is he is above New South Wales Cup level, and I don't know that he's going to necessarily learn too much there. So he's like for that reason, he's almost a borderline selection where I don't disagree with erring on the side of giving him game time in New South Wales in the NRL. He's got to learn. Yes, there is a point where you go, well, look, you can't keep doing all you're learning in the NRL, but I think he's going to be better for it. Now, that said, the other side of the coin was I don't know that we had the options there before.
I feel like we're being handcuffed a bit by injuries, by obviously players sort of taking a leave of absence and just bad form. And
yes,
in an ideal world, like I said, he's a raw prospect. He's not playing 80 minutes if things were panning out the way we wanted. And things aren't panning out the way we wanted.
Yeah. Now, the change about comes, first of all, let's see what the form is of the players that play New South Wales Cup this weekend, if they continue to apply pressure, and we need them to stay with better form. The second thing is the move there with Jordan Samrani is also, it's a pointer to the thinking of the coaches.
Yep.
Now, Jordan was, we couldn't pin him down on whether he was playing this week or not.
We bumped into him yesterday ahead of our chat with Steve Georgalis, and he was very cagey. He had the travel bag with him.
Cagey.
Yeah.
And the reason he was asked was that people would probably work out you don't play in the game if you haven't trained there during the week. So it's obvious what was seen through the week. We don't say what we see through the week for obvious reasons, but now the game's over, we can say that yes, he was training on an edge through the week, so it looked very much like he was likely to play. Not 100%, as he said. He told us, I'll probably find out in a few hours. But the thinking is obviously he's got potential as a back rower rather than as a centre or winger.
Yeah, and
I think he showed enough with that. I liked what I saw at training. He's a big body. He's very mobile. He hits hard in defence. He probably has all the hallmarks of what you're looking for in the modern day back rower.
I think on projections too, ideally he takes over from Charlie Geimer as the starting right edge because Jordan's been, playing 80 minutes and high production 80 minutes too, both NRL and New South Wales Cup. So he can shoulder that heavy workload down the right edge and allows you to bring Charlie back onto the bench as that sort of, not utility, but your middle back row that can cover some other spots too.
Yeah, so that Charlie's got that versatility of being able to cover a middle or an edge.
And then obviously if he needs to go onto an edge because there's a backline injury, Semirani can kick out to the centres or the wing, and you got a lot of positional versatility between those two players there. I think that's the plan. And that would definitely help with the back row stocks. I think that helps a lot. And it doesn't mean we're going to have a star or a stud there, but obviously the early signs from Jordan this year have been fantastic. And just physically, he is made for the NRL. And we've seen that at both levels, Cup and NRL. So really keen to see that progressing 60s. And I think
anyone else with comments here, mate?
I think Dave asked us about our impressions on Riley today. We mentioned the defensive effort there, a lot of tackles, some missed tackles there, but he was obviously high energy, chasing down the kickers and putting pressure on. Had some nice attacking involvements. Probably didn't. There was a couple of chances where he probably could have run from dummy half. I thought that he went for the pass, but then again, he's a young guy sort of finding his way in a team with a couple of star playmakers, and he doesn't want to overcall there. Still had some nice. What I think has been really nice has been his work with Dylan Walker. They've got a nice little thing going around the middle there, sort of catching markers out, which is nice. Michael Formosa asked us, why do we upgrade Richard Pennicini to top 30? Seems to be down the pecking order. That is fair in isolation again. It is worth remembering that Richard busted his ribs in round one. He's been coming back from that injury. I think in an alternate timeline where he's been fit, he's in Cup at this point, maybe kicking down the door to the NRL. I wouldn't be rushing him too. He's still young. It's a fair question, Michael. But we do have a number of backs now. We've gone from having no backs to having actually a decent backline stock with Sam Rani there. Sean Russell obviously becomes surplus to requirements once Zach Lomax is back. And suddenly you've got a very deep backline, which is going to be good and bad. Good insofar as NRL, bad for the young guys trying to get a crack in, but that's why you have succession planning. So I wouldn't be too worried that Richard Pennicini is not in the big picture right now, 60s.
No, and it's look. I guess it's a bit like last year because last year Sam was on a development contract from memory, but he played the entire season in Jersey Flegg as well, so he was eligible to be used from the first round in the NRL. But they played a very cautious approach with Sam. Now, the other thing too that you have to realise with some of these players is that they take advantage of the fact that they're, well, I say take advantage. It helps them to juggle where they can fit players in the lower grades, because there are players who, if they played all of their young ones in New South Wales Cup, there'd be some contracted players that might not be playing any of the Parramatta grades on a weekend. They might be running around for Ron Massey Cup, and they might be, not too far off being on par, as far as their playing capacity is concerned. So Richie's got that eligibility to drop back and play under 21s of Jersey Flegg, and it's pretty much also been the same for Josh Lynn, who, maybe in a lot of other clubs might be playing New South Wales Cup.
Yep.
But because of the age factor, and we've got Dean Hawkins and Ronnie Volkman, who are obviously well past the age of 21, and they're not eligible to drop down to Jersey Flegg, so they're not going to bring someone in who can play Jersey Flegg. As the season gets on and injury and suspension and those sorts of things happen, you may see Richie Penasini up there in New South Wales Cup.
Yep. And a number of those flag players will get their shots. We've seen the first one this week of Tiank, or not the first one. Last week, Muhammad Al-Madeen got the call, and now Tiank and Brown Big T getting that chance off the interchange. So those flag players will filter in and start showcasing their credentials towards a 2025 or 2026 debut. We had a bit of confusion in the chat with my references to Gideon and not Kitione. We were informed that he prefers to be called Gideon in the preseason 60s, but the team do always have him down there as Kitione Katonga, not Gideon. So just to clarify, that's who we're talking about.
And it's not us struggling to say his name. It's actually,
we're not slurring our speech that bad just yet.
No.
There was a bit of love to Abby alongside Charrington from Peter Z. Agreed. We'll give them some props in the team, the NRL News Post 60s, because they had awesome games. Rory Owens, mixed bag too, but some great moments there for the young girl on debut for her state, but obviously got taken to task.
Well, getting a try, mate. Getting a try in Origin. But there's a big moment for her.
Abby and Kennedy were on fire for the Blues, among the best players on the park. And Abby in particular, you could see, did you see how hyped Kennedy was when she scored that try? That was just talk about having your own personal hype girl. Kennedy's just like bouncing around, just pointing and going, yes. Great games from both our girls there. Look, more frustration the referees, of course. I would love to see a roundtable about what they can do, they being like media personalities and former stakeholders of the game or current stakeholders of the game, about how to fix it, but above our pay grade. What else we got here? Mitch Andrews asking, do we think Royal should transition Sam Running into the second row? We touched on that 60s. I think that very much that is the plan right now, and I think that while he's not going to be the enforcer, or maybe he will, but we haven't seen the signs that he'll be the enforcer that Murata was, having that hybrid back row centre in your starting team, it is worth a lot. And I think that's where Jordan Samrani can elevate himself to being a key person, a key member of his team.
So, and John, just on that point, and that question about whether that's, whether he can transition there, that was actually the plan in this match. He wasn't on the interchange
as an emergency back.
As an emergency outside back. He trained in the back row during the week, so that was always, and that's where he was going. But he's got that versatility to, if something untoward had happened to an outside back, he's there and able to step in there. However, that plan was for him to go into the back row. It wasn't that, we better give him some game time, we'll put him into the back row. No, that was actually what he trained to do.
And someone mentioned it in chat with his time at the Bulldogs. This isn't a zero to hero transition. He does have some experience in the back row from prior grades at other clubs. So just getting him fully up to speed and integrated into the team shapes now will be the key. Ben Johnson, good mate of ours, he's chiming in from his second pub on Magic Round. Says he's disappointed but happy with the effort. Goff is now on his spit list. You're not wrong. Oh, look, we're never going to condone spitting on a referee, but geez, they make themselves hard to like, don't they? Oh God. Alex with a comment, I'm shocked I actually missed Kelmer and his line running and attack he possesses. Yeah, look, that really is an underrated trait of what Kelmer brings, especially when Mitchell Moses is in the team. Really sharpens up that whole running too. Kelmer's suspension was always going to be a real bugbear for the team because we mentioned the lack of back roles available right now. Guyman's come in and done a solid job. Sam Roney's obviously now in the picture, but Kelmer's just a big, thunderous lad that can run a sharp line, and him getting suspended while was the correct call, like it was a high contact tackle. It is frustrating for the team. What else we got here? Alex again for question or comment. When full strength, is Kelman Cardi should be starting back row and leave Katonga on the bench perhaps? Look, full strength 60s. There's a case for Cardi to come back in the team, but he has still got work to do to impress upon Jason Riles that he deserves a recall. He made steps last week. I thought that was his best game this year. And certainly at full strength, he's going to be in the frame. But the problem for Cartwright, and this is a problem for a number of players we've seen already this year, Craig, is that Jason Riles wants he's looking for that intersection between talent and youth. And if there's going to be either even horses or slightly behind, horse in this competition, he is going to give the edge to the player that he can develop and build towards a push towards a premiership in the coming years. And Cartwright's off contract. He's on the backside of 30, and he hasn't made a great first impression, obviously, given he's been relegated to the New South Wales Cup this year.
I'd rephrase that question that was asked and say, at full strength, will these players be our back rowers? I would say, if these players were in their best form, would this be the starting back row? Right? Because if you've got an informed Bryce Cartwright can do things that virtually no other player on the Eels roster would be able to do. No other forward on the Eels roster would be able to do. And believe me, we've seen him over the years at Parramatta. If you think he's done some trick shots on the playing field, he's got a few more on the training track as well, where you can imagine that he's, he might feel over the years he's had a bit more license to improvise. But it just has not been a great season for Bryce. He's had some injury. He's didn't come out of the pre-season in the the higher ranked, as one of the higher ranked forwards, and his form when he got on the field would have justified a lower ranking. However, last week in New South Wales Cup he produced moments which were moments of him at his best, and just freakish best, like the crossfield kick from an offload from Madison to an unmarked Jordan Samrani out on the wing. So he's gone a chip kick from the middle of the field, executed perfect. It's almost like a big forward pass to an unmarked winger. That's how good it was executed. But we can't just see moments of it. We need all the tough work that a forward does as well, and we need it done on a consistent basis from Cardi, because that's essentially what he was doing when BA was the coach. We were getting the best version of Bryce Cartwright that had been seen in probably the previous 6 years. So until he's producing his best, then I don't think he's going to be considered.
Update from Ben: he wouldn't waste spit on him. And he also gives us another one. Really, the NRL side, I think we need to start Walker and put Hopgood into the front row rotation. I've been banging that drum before, 60s. I did see some criticism of Hopgood earlier in the chat too. It was a mixed bag for him tonight. I think for the first time I saw him running for a little bit of intent, but then there wasn't enough production. Ozzy had that great offload when he was working at dummy half.
That was a big moment for that try.
It's he is clearly not near his best.
He's got a big error in him each game at the moment.
Yes, whether it's defensively or defensively. He had the drop ball off the Moses pass when we were attacking the goal line in the first half. He just feels he's not quite there right now, and I don't know if it's an identity thing for his play style on this team, if he's getting sort of lost in the rotation because of the other forwards. We know he can be a lot better than what we're seeing. The question is how much rope does Riles give him right now? I don't know. I don't think Ben's off the mark there of putting him into the front row rotation, or at least.
John, can I just say, when you said how far is he off the mark, or when's he going to get there? How much rope does he give to for him to get there? I actually think tonight might be the launch pad for him. I thought I saw signs that were indicating that he's heading to a return to his best form. It wasn't his best form tonight, but it was one of his better performances tonight. So I take that as a positive from him.
Blue and Gold Army podcast question about our defense. Do you feel like Sam Moa's, he corrected himself, Sam Moa, instead of Toa, defensive style doesn't suit for our boys to convert on the field since he came here from Super League? Look, fair question. A obviously new defensive structures in place, 60s. I do think it's too early to make a judgment call either way. We're only 1/3 of the way through the season, but that 1/3 has been an incredibly disruptive third from the roster standpoint. We haven't had Mitchell Moses. We've had a number of players rotating in and out via injury and suspension and form. I felt like tonight, by and large, the defensive structures were okay. We talked about the issues with our ruck defense getting almost sniped by the referee and that sort of spiraling into the Sharks making some meters. Obviously, the Sharks had success attacking our edges, running the ball on the last. We got caught short a couple of times. I feel like that's something that the Sharks have definitely picked up on video. I'd have to go. You'd have to do a review of Parramatta's recent games to confirm that. But the way the Sharks were very poised and so full of intent with how they attacked made it feel like it was a calculated gambit. So that's definitely an issue. But
John, I just want to jump in there. I don't think you can talk about Sam Mower as defence coach in isolation, because it's really both Sam and Jason Riles that is determines the Eels' defence structures, and I certainly see Sam's involvement when it comes to technique and those sorts of those aspects. It's really I think it's as much Jason Riles with defensive structures as it is Sam Mower. So what that question becomes is whether the Eels have the right defensive structures, regardless of who it is. Are their defensive structures correct? I always say the issue for me with Parramatta and defence has never been so much about structures, but rather execution. And that one of the big problems that they faced last year was that their ability to get back in a position on the line and then get back up off the line in defence was not what it should be. And then that created problems in being able to execute because the attack was that much more advanced than where they should be. So the Eels needed to get back faster to their position, which then allows them to get fast off the line in how they move up, which then cuts down the time that the attack's got. Conversely, if they're slow coming back and then slow coming off, they're having to make rush decisions about where they go to from there. With what's happened, do they slide? Do they, what have they got to? Whose player is that runner? All those sort of defence decisions. All of a sudden, they're rushed. They haven't got the time to make them, and that's where we saw problems last year. This year, it's been, for as far as I'm concerned, individuals not executing their actual tackles. I think we're doing a fair job with the line speed for most of it. But when a tackle is missed, and we've seen it, like some of those, what you'd call in inverted commas, softer tries that have occurred have been where the blokes have missed their mission. They haven't, the contact has been weak.
Yep.
The ball runners from other forwards have bumped out of tackles and got over with ease. And it's like, where's the hit?
Yep.
Or where's the hit and stick?
Agreed.
Like, it's the actual execution of the tackle this year that's
it's not a systemic issue,
problem.
It's an execution issue. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, it doesn't mean a team's not going to get another team for numbers. Because
That's
how
rugby league works in the red zone when the fullback has to drop out of the line. Yes, that is why you see fullbacks defending in the front line these days, to create the 13 on 13. And even then,
and that's why you got wingers scoring so many tries, that it's how rugby league has always been played. You work for numbers, and this is where game managing halves come into it so well, because they're constantly looking, how is the team numbered up compared to where we are?
They're counting a hat on a hat. Yeah, exactly. 5 on 5, 4 on 5, 3 on 2. That's where the Clearys and the Moseses and the Hugheses and the DCEs and that caliber of halves, that's why they make the millions. Good answer there, Craig. We'll take a few more questions, guys. I don't want to keep you here too much longer. We're over the hour mark already. I did see a question from our mate Rob talking about some slick handling and the completion rates. Both teams completed well in this one. 85% for the Sharks, 78% for the Eels. The ball was in play for a long time too in this game, it felt like. So this was a pretty good game. I imagine the neutrals would have had a lot of fun with this one, unfortunately.
Yeah, you couldn't complain. Both teams were identical in the first half, 17 of 21.
Yes.
Sets completed. The Sharks obviously just did a little bit better in that second half than what the Eels did. And where the Eels, I think, had a slight advantage for time in possession in the first half, the overall match ended up
favoured the Sharks. Plus 5 minutes for the Sharks.
Plus 5%, which then becomes significant.
Yep.
And especially significant when you realise that they've overcome a deficit from the first half to end up with an overall match advantage of that much. So,
question from Dave: we'll be interested to see how much input Riles has to the recruitment and retention process. Does seem to have been a bit frustrating in the past. Agreed. Although we have some key players moved on. Look, it feels like pretty clearly 60s, and we're speaking from an outsider's perspective here. That in that sort of the recruitment process for himself when he was pitching it to the club, Riles had a vision. And whatever's happened with the whole exchange of coaches and whatnot, the R&R team have done a good job. They've kicked in the gear. Best recruitment class. We caught it from the very first days of the preseason or heading into the preseason. Geez. Best recruitment class we've seen in a long time. And it just felt like in the wake of everything that had happened last year, and you can point fingers at whoever you want, but it just feels like people were able to reset. And that's probably the best way of putting it. And there was a bit more vision at all levels here, and they've done a good job. So I think Riles drives this. I think he has a type of football that he is trying to build the Eels to, and he's certainly recruited in that regard, 60s, and he's retained in that regard. And I imagine he's earmarked juniors in that regard from that the two very talented squads we have right now in the flag and the ball. And you're seeing that also in the New South Wales Cup, the young guys coming in and doing that job. So, I think Riles is driving a lot of this, Dave. I mean, and as a head coach, that's what you want to see. He can't be personally chasing all these signatures, but it's his vision, and he's the one that often will be the deal sealer when it comes to getting the key recruit. So Riles is doing a good job here. And that,
John, can I just jump in because
of course
they showed an interview on Fox Sports where the South Sydney CEO is Blake Solly.
That sounds right.
Yep. Yeah, and he was talking about the recruitment of that English half and
Lewis.
Lewis Dodd.
Dodd, yeah. I was about to say Dobbs, but it's Dodd, yeah.
And they said about, whether the incoming coach, because the incoming coach wasn't going to have too much say in that recruitment, that was going on at that time. And Blake Solly said something along the lines of, recruitment isn't solely about, like, the coach will have a say in it, but the coach doesn't have the final say.
Yep.
Or words to that effect.
He's not the executive authority.
Rattled off all the individuals at South that have a say in recruitment. Now, that's a recruitment committee model. The Eels have a recruitment committee.
Yep.
Right? So
a coach might want player X of a high caliber, but the committee can only give them players PQ and R at a lower level of play because that's what the market has, or they haven't got the funds available. It is a very malleable, fluid situation, isn't it, Craig, where coaches will want a certain player, the committee can get them that player sometimes, can't get them at other times, and you have to settle. A lot of compromise. But yeah, look, the key thing here is going back to Dave's point, Jason Riles has a vision, and right now the club is executing that vision, and we're not seeing all the results on the field, although obviously we're improving. But I think he's certainly giving fans a lot of reason to believe.
Yeah, the point I wanted to make about it, John, is that the coach isn't involved in money negotiations or term of contract negotiations with the agent. They may well meet with the player. They might even meet with the agent to talk about their vision and those sorts of things and how keen they are to get them there. But once they start to come down to talking dollars and the terms of the contract and things like that, it's often not the coach that ends up making the decision about whether they're going to continue with the recruitment or not. It may well be that the club says, no, we're not going to be able to meet those terms. No, we're not going to pay that amount of money, and that's the end of it. And the coach may well want that player, but the club or the recruitment people can't or won't deliver, beyond a certain price or for a certain length of time. Now, sometimes the coach might say to them, look, I think player X is worth this amount of money, and I'd like to get him on ideally I would get him on a contract for this period of time. But that's like, it's like a point in negotiations, and the club might start with that point from the coach, but it doesn't mean they're able to, come to agreement with the player and his agent. So, that's just a little bit of background about what can happen in those situations.
Got a comment from Fletch by way of Ben. He said that Hoppy looked great with Junior when they ran direct, and I agree. That's where I thought that Hopgood had some intent to his runs, like a great first step into the line, setting the tone for the rest of the carry. So I agree that he worked well with Junior. Good comment there from Fletch.
By the way, we must ask Ben how has he finished giving that home tattoo to Fletch?
Oh goodness! While Ben responds to that one, I'll keep running through. Got a couple questions about Madison and Cardi. I think Alex asks, is Madison in the same boat as Cardi? And yeah, guys, I don't think you need to overthink this one. Early season form, especially with Cardi, obviously not great. Madison got his crack on the back of a good game out at Lidcombe, right? 60s.
I think Maddo's had one really bad game, which was against Manly.
Yeah,
and apart from that, he's actually been not too bad.
He got called into the team for the Darwin game on the back of a good game out at Lidcombe, and didn't make the impact that he would have liked. And yeah, again, we're talking about the intersection between talent, production, and young and just youth. And guys like Tuivasa and Moretti are getting the call right now. And people can go back, and there's receipts of me saying that I feel like a fit and in form Madison is in our top 17. I still hold true to that. But right now, just, not quite in the picture. So don't need to overthink that one. Buzz asks us, is Jack Williams really a prop forward, or is that short up front? Jack Williams, I believe, is a prop forward, again, under Jason Roll's vision, right? Leg speed, agility around the ruck, good work rate. And, yeah, conventionally not a big prop, but when you use him as a foil to someone like Junior Barlow, it gives you a combination there of different types of body shapes, different types of play styles. And I think that Williams, the value of Williams is his versatility. He can play on an edge if you need. But, yeah, I do think that Riles is looking at the current meta game of the NRL and has identified that you've got the Cam McInneses, the Cam Murrays, you've got the Ruben Cotter, the other one up at the Dolphins that's just blowing out his ACL every year, Craig. Gilbert. There are a lot of small ball, high leg speed middles now, and Jack Williams profiles to that.
Yep.
What else we got? I think that's probably a wrap, guys.
Yep.
I think I can see some talk about who's going to partner Moses next year. With saying without saying, I mean, the media have installed Parramatta as very hot favourites for a certain player. So I suppose the conversation just waits until we get more developments on that front. But yeah, frustrating result, guys. Eels go down 28-18. Showed plenty of ticker in this one, plenty of spirit to get back in the contest against a very good Sharks team who bounced back from an ugly loss to the Tigers. Unfortunately, the two teams, their great contest was interrupted by the ref show. All the fans come to watch the refs, right? 60s. That's what we're learning from the NRL these days.
I'm now trying to, centre. Bring myself down and trying to centre. And
like a little mantra to reestablish ourselves. We'll wrap up by thanking all the viewers and listeners, thanking our sponsors, Paraleagues and Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Neural and Parramatta. We didn't plug at the start because we're so fired up, but guys, no matter what platform you're on, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud or iTunes, give us a like, a subscribe. You can give us a 5-star, I suppose, on iTunes and Spotify, but I'm not going to make you do that. And of course, if you do want to support us, Patreon's there as well. You can catch it on every article to the right and bottom of every post. But on that note, 60s, we've got a very busy day tomorrow. Everyone that's here, keep in mind that we've got 3 games in the Junior Rep Grand Finals. Lisa Fiola, Tasha Gale, and SG Ball, all against the Roosters of various flavours. The Classic Tricolours, the Central Coast, and the Indigenous Academy. We're going to bring you all the coverage tomorrow of those 3 games. So it's going to be a mammoth run, and we're hoping to bag hopefully all 3 grand finals, but it's going to be tough. But Craig, you'll be out there. I'll be calling the games. It's going to be very, very exciting.
Yep, looking forward to it, John. And so this makes it a really important way to finish the podcast, bearing in mind it's tomorrow. Go you mighty Eels.